All right, 5 albums to get you deeper into more extreme music. This list is meant to be a progression from the 5 suggestions on the previous list. So if you enjoyed At the Gates' Slaughter of the Soul, I'm going to recommend Death's all-time classic album, Human. Death, widely regarded as the greatest death metal band of all time. I definitely share that opinion. And while there's some debate over which of their albums from their amazing discography is best, I do think Human offers you a little bit of everything that Death does well. Still has melodic guitar work and legible vocals without going too deep into guttural styles that might be intimidating for a new listener. But this is definitely much heavier than At the Gates Slaughter of the Soul. Takes you a little bit further into progressive and technical metal that still has hooks and is re-listenable. Amazing album. All right, number 2 on this list. If you enjoyed Mastodon's Leviathan, I'm going to recommend Neurosis, Through Silver and Blood. Neurosis are the pioneers of post-metal. I will say, full disclaimer, Neurosis are no longer an active band because of some troubling actions of founding member Scott Kelly. So if you just want to disregard this band altogether, definitely understandable. However, I think for many people who have listened to Neurosis for a long time, there's sort of a foundation of heavy music. They started off as a crust punk band from the Bay Area, have evolved their sound over time to pioneer, again, the post-metal sound. Still has a sludgy backbone like Mastodon's Leviathan, but this introduces more industrial textures, has a much darker and more twisted atmosphere. And to this day, there are still bands ripping off Neurosis. I think there's more Neurosis clones than any other heavy band that I can think of in history. Great album to get a little bit further into some of the more mechanical metal that you will experience. All right, number 3 on this list, Entombed Wolverine Blues. If you enjoyed Sepultura's Chaos AD, Wolverine Blues is even more groove based. If you've ever heard of the buzzsaw guitar tone, a widely emulated guitar tone that is still commonplace for hardcore and death metal bands today, that was pioneered by Entombed on their famous album Left Hand Path. This is a little bit more of an accessible album. It's considered death and roll. It still has the punishing brutality of death metal, still very riff driven, but it has a swagger and a backbone of hardcore, which is part of what Entombed brought to death metal, is a little bit of a hardcore swagger. This album has stood the test of time. 30 years later, it's still a widely covered album. The title track, Wolverine Blues, you hear it frequently covered at live shows by punk and metal bands alike. This is a classic, amazing album. All right, number 4 on this list. If you enjoyed Electric Wizard's Dope Throne, I'm going to recommend Thou. Heathen, Thou, one of the most beloved Louisiana sludge metal bands. Louisiana, New Orleans, the home of sludge metal pioneering bands like Acid Bath, I Hate God, Crowbar, Down, all come from Louisiana. Thou have a sound that's a little bit more rooted in doom as opposed to bands like I Hate God and North Carolina based band Buzz Oven, who have more of a hardcore backbone. So this would be an easier transition from Electric Wizard, but this gives you a much more feral, demonic, black metal inspired vocal style while still having those glacial paced, slow building songs that are rooted in doom metal. Thou are an incredibly prolific band. They have a huge discography. They really have never missed throughout their career. Heathen still stands as the high watermark and is a great way to get a little bit further, open some doors into doom, and eventually black metal. All right, number 5 on this list. If you enjoyed Dillinger Escape Plan, One of Us is the Killer, the next recommendation would be to check out Botch. We Are the Romans, one of the most important metalcore bands of all time. This isn't your 2000s radio-friendly metalcore. This is chaotic. It brings that blistering intensity of hardcore with the brilliance of metal, technical playing, a lot of experimental flourishes that keep this album interesting. If you appreciated the break that you got on Dillinger Escape Plan's One of Us is the Killer into some more alternative sing-along friendly hooks, Botch's We Are the Romans definitely doesn't have that. This is foot on the gas for the entire album, but one of the most important metalcore albums of all time. And in my opinion, it is part of the trifecta of metalcore, along with Converge's Jane Doe and Cave-In's Until Your Heart Stops. Great way to get further into this style of music, which is intense and pummeling. All right, that's the list. Hopefully you enjoy those. If you've heard them before, let me know. If you check them out and you like them, let me know. And stay tuned for 5 more that will progress off of this list. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more like this.